Hey friends, soon-to-be friends, and undecideds. Tom here, your token human creature, to talk at length about something I have no expertise in, with a confidence I have not earned but feel owed nonetheless. Now I know Avatar came out roughly 6 months from the point of the posting of this video, and at the speed sets are coming out, doing any kind of analysis on the set is like making a joke about how the English patient is too long in 2026. Which I essentially just did. Which just goes to show you can buy back goodwill on any outdated, lazy, or hackneyed joke just by acknowledging how outdated, lazy, or hackneyed it is. Pretty neat. Now, I have never watched the show. It came out while I was a sophomore in high school, and while some of my friends did get into it and love it and swear by it to this day, I was too cool for things at a very young age. And as evidence, I submit this photo from roughly 2005. But the Avatar set has me really considering checking it out. People I enjoy it. And those people have already proven themselves to have at least solid baseline taste by associating with me. So maybe I'll do a watch through and do videos with my scalding hot takes. If that's something you'd be interested in, say so in the comments and maybe I'll think about it. But before I do that, before I think about anything, let's talk about the thing I've already thought about. I thought it might be fun to use my complete lack of familiarity with the show outside of the cards to try to get a read on some of the characters, and in this case specifically, the avatars. I don't know how prevalent they are in the show, but based on the fact that the show is called Avatar and not Avatars, my gut is, and my first prediction is, that these fine new friends are quite likely deceased at the beginning of this show. Again, I'm going to take some swings here for the amusement of those who love the show, or who have hate-watched it, which if you've done that, don't do that. Go do something better with your time. The only thing worse than yucking somebody's yum is yumming your own yuck. Now, I'm going to rank each of these characters based on their card or cards from the Avatar set and the Avatar Eternal set. One thing to point out is that these characters are not equally represented in terms of card count. Roku and Kyoshi have 2, while Kuruk and Yangchen only have their sagas from the main set. The extra background from Roku or Kyoshi could give them more points in their favor or against them as we get more specific. So we're going to call it a wash. The more mysterious avatars with less information may cause us to go further afield and thus be further off. I will be ranking each avatar across 5 domains. Playability, how good they are, particularly in Commander, but bonus points if they're seeing play in other formats. Ambition, aka how awesome is the dream scenario with these cards? If they get to do the thing, how glorious is that thing? And how obnoxious is it for my opponents? Aesthetics, literally style points. Estimated power, which is how powerful I think they are in the lore of the show based on how powerful their cards are. And lastly, vibes. Who would I want to hang out with? With whom would I share my secrets, my fears, my desires, in hopes that they would not only listen openly and honestly, but then share similar intangibles so that I may feel comforted. Finally, Avatar Aang is not included. I feel like just through cultural osmosis, I know too much about him. He's too mainstream, and I, if anything, am a shrouded beacon of counterculture. Hey everybody, Interstitial Tom here. I just wanted to take a quick moment to shout out a cool small business that's local to me. They are called QueerCraft. They are a queer-owned gaming company located in Hoboken, New Jersey. But if you're in the New Jersey, NYC area, they pop up at all kinds of shows and events like that. They make cool stuff like this deck box that I got that has this cool clockwork life counter on it, which I'm a big fan of. I am using mine to house my 5-color Allies deck because subtlety is for the weak of heart. But they make all kinds of cool stuff beyond just deck boxes, including things like dice trays and dice towers, extra meeples for your board games, all kinds of cool stuff. So this Pride Month, keep a lookout for them and support them if you're in the area. Thanks, and back to whatever super important stuff I was just talking about. Let's start with a cursory glance of the 4 Saga cards. The first thing I notice is they all have some kind of card draw, card advantage ability. All slightly different. Kuruk scries 2 and then draws you a card and then does it again. Kiyoshi draws based on power. Roku impulse draws. And then worst of all, Yang Chen lets you draw only if you also have an opponent draw, secret rendezvous style. I think this is our first biggest hint as to who these characters are. Yang Chen, perhaps more even-tempered, diplomatic. Roku burns bright, but temporarily. So they could be someone who's more of a power first, consequences later kind of person. Kuruk looks and then draws, which feels like the opposite, a steady, measured, knowledgeable approach. Kiyoshi values strength and resoluteness, so if I were to just go on this, I would see an egghead, a firebrand, a strong man, and a politician. So let's look at the other front side abilities to see if I can parse more out. Kuruk is the easiest because, well, it's the same. The lesson to be learned from this, kids, learning is boring. Yang Chen lets you exile something, and then your opponents can do the same as long as it's not yours, and is at least 3 mana value or greater. So not beating the politician allegations just yet. Perhaps if we wanted to put them in a friendlier light, we could call them a negotiator. Roku gives you mana of any color to help cast those spells you exiled, which gives me the impression of something gathering power to deploy something devastating. And I'm charging up your Spirit Blast. Lastly, Kiyoshi Earthbends, but also makes the Earthbent land an island, which I think is super interesting, and a clue. But we're going to come back to that. But the flip sides are where the avatars themselves are revealed. We're no longer hearing their legends, we're seeing them in action. Kuruk makes Evasive Spirits every time you cast a spell, and then you can waterbend for 20, that's 2-0, to take an extra turn. This to me feels like the accumulation of knowledge, but unlocking the knowledge of the past to shape the future. Its in-universe cousin feels like Lorehold and Strixhaven, all about learning from the past, but maybe less about preservation than progression. I have no idea if I am right, but I think this is a really cool design. Roku firebends for 4, which isn't bad, while also giving you something to do with this mana you just accumulated by letting you make a dragon for 8 mana. This feels nice and self-contained, although it's interesting that Roku can't make enough to make the dragon on her own. It feels like there's a lesson to be learned here about the pitfalls of the lone wolf strategy. No matter how strong you become, you could always be more with more people on your side. He doesn't get any evasion or anything to help him swing safely, but he's got a decent backside. This is giving the impression that they recklessly chase and use power without thinking about the bigger picture. Yang Chen just puts people in timeout, but only when you cast your second spell each turn. It's almost like they get a warning, and then the second time, straight to jail. This is clearly someone who uses violence as a last resort. We see them constantly trying to talk sense into you, giving you chance after chance to act right, before eventually banishing you to the cornfield. So it's starting to look a little bit less like a politician, and a little bit more like a parent. Lastly, Kiyoshi, and I think this is where the boring crown gets passed from Kuruk, as this gives your land creatures trampled, hexproof, and also taps to make mana based on strength. Gameplay-wise, it's green things, which isn't super interesting. It's well-trodden territory, but character-wise, it shows that Kiyoshi isn't just about strength, but also protection, and maybe even isolationism. They go off on their island, where their land can flourish on their own, but if you threaten it, you'll catch these island hands. Which I guess would be peninsulas. They're not a big dummy strong boy, they're a protector and a cultivator. Now let's take our bonus glimpse at Roku and Kiyoshi. I don't think the Kiyoshi card adds too much to the portrait. It makes land creatures, and this time because it's self-hexproof, this person feels like someone who wants to be left alone to do their gardening. I feel like when we see characters like this in media, it's a character who suffered some kind of loss that has caused them to retreat and simplify. I tried to do something, it went bad, so now I'm just gonna go shut down, do the thing I want to do and tell everyone else to piss off. Somewhat Luke Skywalker in The Last Jedi kind of vibes, or to give you a different Disney property, Philatides in the animated Hercules. Roku, on the other hand, seems to show character growth, at least strictly as I'm interpreting these. Saga Roku is a hothead loner, but this Roku not only gives you mana anytime the player attacks, but also lets you keep that power or use it to buff your other creatures. This guy went from ball hog to team player. Again, I could be reading these backwards, and it's actually the opposite journey, but I'm seeing two characters taking opposite paths, one receding from the world and one learning to embrace it. So with all that analysis out of the way, let's judge some fictional characters, and let's kick things off with playability. I started out for sure thinking I was going to rank Yang Chen last, but upon looking at it, they do remove something big, and potentially more if your opponents are greedy, petty, or both. The card draw ability is truly terrible. I don't want to give my opponents that much of a gift, but at least you can opt out of it. The flip side is where I see it win back some points. As a body with flying, plus the ability to reset things on the board, this feels pretty good. I also think it might be the one your opponents are most likely to let stick around. That being said, only getting to do it once a turn feels stingy. I think Kuruk has a pretty good baseline. Scry 2, draw 1, doesn't immediately cry out for a response. They have the worst stats on their flip side, but a spirit per spell that is essentially unblockable feels like it could be a win con in its own right. But only Kiyoshi can actually win you the game the turn it flips, assuming you're playing any kind of land deck, which you should be if you're playing this card. You flip it, you swing, you knock some or all of your opponents out. It's not the fanciest thing in the world, but it is efficient. I wish their Chapter 1 and 2 abilities were flipped, so you made a land and then drew off of it, but ideally you've already got some kind of land creature on the field when you play this. It is 6 mana after all. Roku here feels like the clear loser to me, but they're saved by their extra printing. The Saga just doesn't feel like it does enough. The Impulse Draw is nice, but the single mana the next turn feels like you're being shortchanged. Again, the Firebending is nice, but it's only on them, and they have no evasion, and are just a 4/4. The Dragon ability is fine, as you're probably playing a decent amount of Firebending, but it seems like a really far walk for a medium payoff. Avatar Roku Firebender feels way better to me. You get the Firebending payoff the turn it comes in, as long as you have anything to attack with, and you can immediately use it if you want to, or save it for later. It is much more expensive with 3 red pips, so tougher to justify outside of 2 color at most really decks, but it just feels way more impactful. So now that I think about it, sorry Yang Chen, you're still 4th. Roku gets 3rd, Kuruk gets 2nd, and Kiyoshi takes the top spot as being the most self-contained, consistent threat. Next, let's talk about ambition. The dream scenario for these cards. Kicking things off with Kuruk, he wants you to flip it, storm off, take some extra turns until you win the game with something like an Elvish Refueler on the field that lets you reuse the exhaust ability. In a perfect scenario, the flipping is the end of the game. And in that way, Kiyoshi is not dissimilar. You built up a small army of lands, flip Kiyoshi, launch in for the kill. Avatar Kiyoshi Earthbender speeds this along, although I guess speed is not the right word. Roku wants you to have a haste enabler on the field, so you can immediately get the impact of it with that firebending mana to either make those dragons off the bat or hopefully buff the squad you have with Avatar Roku Firebender or some of your other firebending abilities. Oddly, the dragons don't factor as much into it because they don't come in tapped or attacking or anything. If you're making them on the swing, the haste doesn't matter. They don't get to participate. So they're kind of just there for a turn and have to survive. So you're probably not even using that in the dream scenario. Yang Chen is the hardest one to see for me in a dream scenario. You're playing low CMC cards, you're reliably activating their ability on each turn, getting rid of threats and slowly winning through control. You could airbend your own things, maybe there's some kind of Appa play here, but this feels like the only one that doesn't win the game in the dream scenario. That being said, I think the ability is much better than Roku's. So I'm going to stick Roku 4th. 3rd is going to go to Yang Chen, 2nd to Kiyoshi, and 1st to Kuruk for dream scenario. If you pull off the Kuruk play, it'd at least be way more intriguing or impressive than if you just go big and smash face with Kiyoshi. Actually, this matches up pretty well. Roku is ambitious, but for the reasons we stated before, unable to reach those ambitions alone. But with friends, they have a chance. Yang Chen doesn't have much ambition at all other than keeping the peace. Kiyoshi is more about keeping their peace, so it's less ambition and more of annoyance. Kuruk, however, has the right confluence of draw and patience to make the dream a reality. Now, time to talk drip. Kiyoshi takes it from me. They've got the colors, the style, and what looks like Kumadori makeup, which makes me think of like kabuki theater. Is this all just an act, this whole Constant Gardener play? There's this ferocious warrior behind it. Kuruk gets second, as the animal pelt look is not only practical, given that they seem to be appearing mostly in cold environments, but adds some much-needed badassery to the whole nerdy presentation, given through their mechanics so far. Now, I promise I am not picking on these two. Roku and Yang-Chen kind of cannibalize each other. They share more of the tried and true warrior monk aesthetic, one of them opting for deep reds, the other more tans and yellows. I will note that Yang-Chen has the Q hairstyle and a glowing arrow akin to Ong's, which it seems they're both airbenders. So I don't know if that's an airbender thing or if there's some kind of blood relation here, like a direct descendant going on here. But at the very least, it does seem like there's some kind of connection, and aesthetically, it gives me something slightly more to react to and latch onto, which lets it take third place, putting Roku in fourth. Second goes to Kuruk, and of course, like I said, first goes to Kiyoshi easily. Now, how does this power in the card translate to the show? I have no idea, but that's not going to stop me from speaking with authority about it. I feel like I am going to instantly find out that Yang-Chen is actually the most powerful and legendary avatar, but this card is not giving me that impression. They feel like a peacemaker, and even if they have incredible power, they avoid gross displays of that power. Kuruk to me is just saying, just you wait. Just you wait till I learn a little bit more. I read another book, I get a little smarter, then kapow. But it's just never enough for you, is it, Kuruk? There's always another book to read. Another lecture to give. Another topic to ramble on endlessly about to someone who's been on their phone for 20 minutes. But you haven't noticed. So I'm between fire and dragons or animating a literal island. I feel like it doesn't matter how many fire dragons you have if they have to fight the literal landscape. So I gotta put Kiyoshi on top again. And here we are. Which avatar has the best vibes? Who would I want to play a game of EDH with? Grab a beer with? Shoot a propane tank with a BB gun with? I have a clear number one, but the rest are murky at best. Yang-Chen feels like an arc. Let's just get that out of the way. Kuruk feels pretty self-involved, kind of narcissistic. They just kind of want to hear themselves talk. And Kiyoshi feels like a grump. I'm going to go with Kuruk on the bottom for the reasons stated in the previous section. I'll put Kiyoshi next. I feel like I would like to hang out with them, but they would not want to hang out with me. And they would not be subtle about that. Yang-Chen can grab number 2 because at least they would be the person to read the rules to whatever game we're playing. And even if they end up being a little rules lawyery, at least they are there and prepared and can help things run smoothly. Roku wins vibes, and it's not particularly close. And this is again where that extra card does come back in handy. Roku is fun, impulsive, and yeah, they might get you into a little bit of trouble, but they'll be in the back of that cop car with you. Even more so, they've shown that they themselves are capable of change and self-improvement, and have learned that the real lethal are the friends we've made along the way. So, now the big, long-awaited results. The inaugural, objectively best avatar not named Aang is, and if you've been paying attention at all to this video, this should be fairly obvious, Avatar Kiyoshi! At the end of the day, they're a little standoffish, and they're powerful in a somewhat ho-hum kind of way, but it's serious power, and they look damn good. So those are my rankings. I cannot wait to start watching the show and see how wrong I was, or better yet, retreat into my own ego and craft nonsensical, self-defeating arguments that prove how I was actually right. A big congratulations to Avatar Kiyoshi, and indeed all of our competitors. And hey, Kiyoshi, lighten up a bit. This is the beginning of big things for you. I have been your humble host, your humble human creature token, saying so long, and remember, it's not what's on the outside that counts, it's whether you can bring an island to life and use it to crush your enemies. Be sure to hit like and subscribe, share this around to your dearest and beloved, and I will see you soon.